Good day, BMH students. This is a very quick referencing and plagiarism workshop for you to watch before your assessments are due. You can watch this at any stage. You don't have to just be a first year. This is a refresher for everyone doing anything at BMH. So watch this video if you need a little bit of a refresher on how to avoid plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? It is presenting someone else's words or ideas as your own. And it's very important to make a distinction there. You can copy someone's words, it counts as plagiarism, but also copying somebody else's ideas is also plagiarism. So if you change the words around, if you completely summarize, if you change everything so not a single word looks the same as the original, that still is plagiarism because you're copying someone else's ideas. So the following are all examples of plagiarism. Quoting or paraphrasing material without citing the source of that material. This includes websites, magazines, newspapers, textbooks, journals, TV, radio shows, movies, videos, photographs, drawings, charts, graphs, anything at all that is not your own. Quoting a source without using quotation marks, even if you do cite it. So if you quote the source and you put in brackets a reference, but you don't put quotation marks around it, and you've taken a direct quote, that will still count as plagiarism. Another example of plagiarism is buying a paper online or downloading it from a free site. I mean, this should be quite clearly not the right thing to do. Another example is copying or using work done by another student. And finally, citing sources that you didn't use or making up a citation counts as plagiarism too. One of the best ways to avoid plagiarism is to take really careful notes when you're writing your assessments. So first, before you take a quote, read the entire text and summarize it in your own words. Remember that summaries still need citations. Now, you don't always have to read the entire text. You can just read a paragraph, but read it and then take it away. Don't look at it. Summarize it in your own words. This is the best way to summarize. Then in your notes, distinguish between material that is quoted, material that's paraphrased, and materials that are your own words and ideas. And the way that I like to do that is to actually just use quotation marks for things that are quoted. Material that's paraphrased, I'll put this little placeholder, ref, as you can see here. I'll use ref to indicate paraphrased. And then things that are in my own words, I just leave as is. Then include references in your notes, or at least referencing placeholders. This is something that I always do. I don't always reference during the writing of an assessment, but I always put a referencing placeholder. Next, when you access a source, copy down all the information that you need in your notes. This is ideal to copy down all the referencing information that you need, but it doesn't always happen. So the next thing that you can do is to take screenshots of websites on your phone, so that you have all of the information you need to cite and reference it. Alright, citing sources, also known as in-text referencing. You must cite the source of every single quote, every paraphrased sentence, and every single summarized idea in an assessment. If you're not sure about whether you should be referencing something or citing something, definitely, you should reference it. You should cite it. Common knowledge, unfortunately, doesn't really exist before. In the past, you didn't need to reference things that were deemed common knowledge. But this is no longer the case, because really, what is common knowledge? What's common to you might not be common to somebody else. So it's important that you reference absolutely everything, even if you think it's common knowledge. Remember that referencing is a two-part process. You have to have your citation or your in-text reference and your reference page entry. Ignore the concept of a bibliography. This concept is now outdated. If you use the exact words as they appear in a source, you have to use quotation marks and a citation. If you summarize or paraphrase, you don't use quotation marks, but you still use a citation, and in both cases, you need to have a reference page entry. Please also remember that your reference page must include every single source that you cited or used in your text. If you leave off just one, this might result in the plagiarism penalty. So go through your text and make sure that your reference page has got everything that you have cited on it. These are some tips to help you avoid plagiarism. So always make sure that you, first of all, take really careful notes and then read your notes afterwards, and make sure that you understand all of the materials before you begin to write. If you don't understand something, like a word, a concept, or a whole text, rather don't use it until you do understand it, or find a text that is a little bit easier for you to understand. The reason for this is that you might be using incorrect information, so you're going to lose out on marks in the long run anyway. Next is to write a draft without looking at your notes. So here you can indicate where you have summarized a text or something, but just from your own head. Remember, I said that's one of the best ways to summarize a text, is to read something and then write your summary without even looking at that text. So write your first draft without looking at your notes, and leave spaces for where you think direct quotes should go, and even try and write down your references without looking at your text too. It can really help to make sure that you understand everything that you're writing down. Use your own words as much as possible. We really are asking for your opinion, and that's what we want. We want to know just how well you can explain yourself before we can give you the marks. So if you just copy, paste, and summarize only the ideas of others, this doesn't show us that you're understanding the text. It shows us that you know how to copy and paste. Next, just keep in mind that no one expects you to write like a professional writer. You haven't graduated from college yet, so we don't expect that you are going to be writing novels for us at a first, second, or third year level. What we do expect of you is to take your work seriously and pay attention to detail. This really can separate you from those who aren't trying too hard. Really focus on your work, take the time that it needs to do it, and focus on those minor details, because that's what referencing is. It's looking at very, very small details. Next is add your quotes, phrases, or summaries to your assessment, and then cite them using your notes. And then after that, read through your final draft, I'd say 2 or 3 times. Get a family member to do the same thing too. Check for spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors. And read through it again after that to make sure that all of your uncited ideas are your own. So every single sentence that doesn't have reference after it, ask yourself, was this my idea? Now we're just going to take some time to go back to the basics, to the very beginning of referencing, to just go through exactly what this means. So your academic literacy textbook is still all important for referencing. If you don't still have a copy, ask your lecturer if you can borrow theirs, and make copies of the relevant pages. Your library definitely has copies, and you all have access to the internet, which is a wealth of information. So try finding information on Harvard referencing there. Remember that your in-text references or your citations go along with your reference page entries. So if you have a citation, it has to be reflected in your reference page. A citation consists of the following things: the surname, space, year, followed by a comma, and the page number. And this all normally is in brackets, but there are a few different ways to do this. Other than websites, in which case the page number is missing. So for websites, you will normally just have the author's surname or the corporate author, followed by the year. All of these elements really do have to be present, even if you use them differently each time, and you should. And I don't mean use them differently each time, like switch up the order. I mean like this. So here you can see we've got this quote, referencing is hard. We can tell that it's not a direct quote, it's a paraphrase, because there aren't any inverted commas around that quote. And you can see that it's open brackets, Gordon, that's their surname, followed by the year 2019, comma, page 45. Referencing is hard, open brackets, Gordon, 2019, 45, close brackets. Another way to say this would be to say, according to Gordon, open brackets, 2019, comma 45, close brackets, referencing is hard. And then finally, in his recent theory, Gordon states that referencing is hard, open brackets 2019, 45, close brackets. 3 different ways of writing the same reference. So a reference page entry consists of the same things every single time, and the style or what you use changes slightly depending on what source you are using. So it always consists of author, comma, initial, open brackets, year, close brackets, title. This part here, for your purposes, remains the same. After that is the publisher and the place, or the website. Sorry, the publisher and the website, and then the place or the date access, depending on what source you're using. So let's go into more detail. For websites, it will be author, comma, initials, or your corporate author, as we stated before, then the year in your brackets, followed by the title, full stop. Then you have these little triangle brackets, or crocodile brackets, as we've been calling them for years, followed by the full URL, close triangle brackets. By the full URL, we mean the full www.com with everything that goes behind it. And finally, in square brackets, the date accessed. For books, it's a little bit different. You still have the author, initial, year, and title, followed by the publisher, colon, place. And the reason why we have this information is it's all vital information that you would need to track down the exact source that you have used. The nice thing about referencing is that if you know the basics of referencing, like I've just gone through, you can figure out all of the answers to your own questions. Make use of the information on the internet, in your textbook, and in other informational booklets that you've been given along the way. If you come across a new source and you're not sure how to reference it, simply Google something like how to reference a radio show using the Harvard method, and you'll find something, definitely within a few seconds. Ignorance isn't an excuse anymore. You all have access to the internet, so use it to its full potential. You know the penalties of referencing incorrectly or plagiarizing. So make sure that you don't fall into this trap. Good luck, and get in touch if you have any questions.